Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to continue experiencing Floor 1 by not only we did somehow manage to check out the Cowgirl play, as well as the forms of Patisserie play, and as a result we did those stages no problem. And in addition to that, we also did manage to able to collect some more bows, which allows us to able to unlock some more cosmetic dresses for Peach. As well as from that, we also did manage to able to collect some bunch of sparkle gems. So exponentially, if we managed to able to actually collect quite enough sparkle gems, we also did manage to able to take down the likes of the forms of the very first boss in the game, which appears to be known as Disco Wing. Get it? Because the forms of some wings are attached to the disco ball, making like a weird bird type of disco ball. But apart from those aside things though, we did somehow take down Disco Wing no problem. So yeah, today for this video, as you can tell, we're about to start able to experience the second floor, because as a result, we still got some more plays to check out. To be more specifically, not only we can able to actually interact with not only one, but 3 new plays we can able to check out later, but there's also the second act in Journey Forms of the Swordfighter. So because of that though, yeah, as a result, originally though, is that I was expecting to try to able to check out one of those rehearsals, but let's just say this right now, I'll save the rehearsals for later, because no matter what though, we should probably able to take care of the forms of a bunch of plays first. So, might take a bit while though, but either way, let's get straight to it with the forms of Swordfighter play Act 2, and this time we're going into the Ghostly Castle. And unlike the forms of how it does it on Act 1, where basically though we able to actually start the play off as traditional Peach, whilst eventually later on you turn into something. Whilst in Act 2, you pretty much stuck with the forms of the transformation at all times. So, pretty cool transition right there, especially noticeable because get it about the fact that we ended up on the second act in Journey Forms of one of those plays in particular. So, yeah, as it turns out, is about the fact that not only we can able to actually continue playing as specific transformations, specifically Swordfighter Peach, but it's also worth noting for is that the actual capacity for the amount of sparkle gems we're going to be collecting, well, in Journey Forms of it, unlike in Act 1 though, they have to collect about like 10 of them, whilst in Act 2, that basically we have to collect about 7 of them. And also, about the fact that the actual collectible we're going to be getting is actually going to be a ribbon as opposed to a bow, unlike in Act 1. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that hopefully we should be able to try our best if we're able to actually obtain not only a bow, as well as the forms of some ribbons in some cases though, but it's also I will try my best able to actually just try to able to get the sparkle gems on my first go around. Well, luckily though, we're not out of luck if we dare able to actually miss out on the forms of not only the ribbon or bow, but also with sparkle gems as well, because thankfully though, until later on, well, then again, we'll have to save that particular topic if we continue proceedings for this game first. So, either way, so yeah, a few things I want to talk about this, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 16th of April today, in some cases in 2024 today, and it looks like we're now on to the halfway point already for the likes of in April in this year so far, before we move on to May, which as a result, I'm still looking forward to able to actually go into May, because not only we can able to actually experience by the forms of summers almost approaching, but also, get this, I'm still basically excited for to experience Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on a go, which that'll be a dream come true. Especially noticeable is a good thing about the fact that that remake finally exists, since in Journey Forms of in September Nintendo Direct back in last year. So that's always a huge plus in my book, especially noticeable about the fact that let's just hope about the fact that maybe at some point in the future that maybe we can able to actually see the actual official trailer for the likes of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, because let's face it though, it's been about a couple of months since in Journey Forms of in September 2023 trailer for the likes of that particular remake of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door since then, because I don't usually count the forms of the actual release date announcement, because for one, it's really short, and two, there's not much new gameplay footage to be found, unless if you really want to count the forms of certain advertisements for that particular remake, but that's besides the point, because obviously though we're able to actually see some first glimpse about the forms of the prologue scene, not only for the sake of the forms of trying to able to encounter the X-Nauts or anything else like that, but it's also about the forms of that particular thumbs up pose for Paper Mario himself, which I will still say it looks super duper cool, especially noticeable about the fact that at least it's actually pretty cool that Paper Mario now able to actually redeem himself for its voice clips again, just like in the original game, as well as the forms of Super Paper Mario as well, because unlike in Sticker Star, Color Splash, and especially the Origami King, decides able to completely absent with that particular Paper Mario's voice. So because of that though, still, no matter what though, I'm still very excited for it. So either way, and it's also worth noting for it, is about the fact that, speaking of which though, is about the fact that, well, I've noticed something about this as well. During the forms of about a couple of days ago, I've seen the actual promo image of the forms of that particular Knuckles the series coming up. And in fact, no matter what though, is about the fact that we've only just got about exactly 10 days left now until Knuckles the series is going to be approaching onto Paramount Plus. So, still I'm very excited about this as well, especially noticeable because around that time, that maybe is a possibility that we can able to actually see what is going on just before the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sorry for a little bit of a tongue twist in the end, folks, because I will admit it though right away. It's been about 5 days ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, just because no matter what though, is that recently, Maxi is now onto the final stretch of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, so because of that, he decided able to tackle through very hard mode in Shadow's playthrough. So best of luck for him, I guess. So, by the way, in this part right here, this is pretty much automated, so you don't have to press anything. So yeah, so far so good anyway, in terms of the forms of our progression for the likes of the Swordfighter acts, because no matter what though, somehow we've pretty much guaranteed that we somehow managed able to claim not only the ribbon, but also with the forms of every single sparkle gems here and there. So, I believe, something tells me is about the fact that once you do manage able to complete 2 acts in particular, basically what happens was though, is that something is about to happen though, which we're probably not gonna talk about it right now, because obviously no matter what though, it's about the fact that, well, exponentially speaking though, back into what I was saying about the forms of that particular promotional image for the likes of Knuckles the series is about to be coming. Like, I believe we've only got, you know, like I said before, 10 days left now until that particular series is about to be releasing. And for what I've noticed on the actual promotional image, it's actually pretty cool. Like, basically it just shows us Knuckles is actually sitting on his throne. So yeah, this is actually filled to the brim with not only, pins from the likes of the bowling, which obviously because that particular scene coming up for Knuckles the series is going to take place in a bowling alley, so yeah, that's actually pretty cool, and with the actual red background on it though, so yeah, that's actually pretty swell. So anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, unfortunately to tell you the truth, and that's what appears to be about the fact that sadly though, that Nintendo is going to be skipping Gamescom this year, which, if you're following from the likes of it not only back in 2020 because of this whole pandemic year, but it's also with the forms of, say, applies with the forms of maybe for the likes of 2021, and say applies with the forms of 2022 as well, it looks like we're going back to square one in regards to the forms of Nintendo's absence of Gamescom. So, it feels like that Nintendo for this year is going to be pretty strange, unlike the forms of how it does it in the previous years for sure. Like, obviously, no matter what though, I'm guessing it's probably because they're about to work on, you know, that new system coming up, or perhaps even maybe because the forms of, well, it's a bit tricky to explain, because I already know for a fact that I'm sure about the fact that we'll let, maybe Pac-Man will mention more about that particular further details until for later. But for now on though, we somehow finish up with the forms of the Ghostly Castle, because after all, we did somehow manage able to take care of the forms of the main threat of that particular play. So no matter what though, it's about the fact that we've still only got 3 plays to go until we basically decided able to take care of the next boss in the game. So that won't be for a little while, especially noticeable because, well, potentially speaking now, when it comes to each and every single place in general, for the likes of each and every single floors, thankfully though, it only took us for about approximately 2 parts in between the forms of each and every single floors, so there might be a couple of exceptions here and there. Well, then again, we're probably not going to explain about it right now, because as it turns out, since no matter what though, that particular symbol just somehow comes out with the forms of Peach's blue gem thing on her dress or something, which actually signifies about the fact that we can able to potentially try to able to rescue one of those specific sparklers. So, relatively speaking, we somehow managed able to receive, let's just say, a Swordfighter spirit. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, and also, since we hear that particular mysterious voice in the background, this means we must able to actually go into the basement floor. So generally speaking, there is actually more floors to it than that. So, because obviously we've already experienced floor 1 already, and we've already somehow got started with floor 2, so I suppose about the fact that we can able to actually force to go into the basement floor for now. Because as you can see, there is actually a grand total of 10 doors we can able to go into, but 1 is currently available, whilst compared to the other 9, is currently unavailable at the moment, because obviously no matter what though, like I stated before, that in order to actually access to, let's just say, the third and final act in Journey forms of one of those specific roles, that basically though is about the fact that we must able to complete the first 2 acts in their respective plays. So for instance, we've already did manage to complete the second act in Journey forms of Swordfighter, so this means we can now able to actually participating in doing Act 3, because potentially speaking, I was about the fact that, well, obviously no matter what though, I was originally trying to able to save up with the forms of the basement floor for later, but this is the only time we have to persuade to able to actually go in there, or specifically, we have to force to go in there before we continue with our second floor experience. So, yeah, I apologize for my commentary, it's a little bit iffy at this point, because something tells me that, like I said before, I recently got my tongue twisted, so even then though, hopefully I'll try to able to make myself a little bit better during at some point on Thursday, so either way though, that's besides the point. So, anyways, as you can tell, that in Act 3, in that particular Swordfighter Peach play, that as you can tell, that we've once again forced to able to actually transform into Swordfighter Peach from the start, just like the forms of how it does it in Act 2. However, the biggest difference is now about the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on combat, first of all, and second is that something tells me, as soon as we grab that particular sparkle gem right there, we now need to collect about 5 of those sparkle gems, as opposed to 7 or 10. So, and I accidentally missed that particular sparkle gem from earlier, but that's okay though, because obviously as soon as we're able to continue our progressioning, this means about the fact that we have to go through this linear experience. So that's the only drawback I can probably think about anyway. But luckily though, like I said before, is that as soon as we continue proceedings for this game, basically we're not out of luck just yet. Because obviously though, it's about the fact that again, we should probably save that particular topic for later. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that, you know, Nintendo is once again skipping Gamescom since 2022. Because unlike in last year in 2023, at the very least we did have something from Nintendo, like for instance showing off the forms of some more gameplay footage, specifically Super Mario Bros. Wonder, because obviously that was a game that everyone else, myself included, were really looking forward to back in last year. But unfortunately for this year, this time around, we're going back to square one for the sake of the absence of Nintendo from Gamescom, since in 3 years respectively, within 2020, 2021, as well as 2022. So yeah, it feels like this is going to be a strange year for sure, which I was assuming about the fact that it does have some bit of potential that's been going on for the likes of in 2024 in general, whilst unlike in 2023 though, it does have some very good high expectations for the sake of not only games lineup, but also with the forms of some film selections here and there as well. So that was generally the best part about the forms of last year for me though. just because no matter what though, some games are practically new at the time, which is, you know, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, as well as Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which we've already mentioned about that earlier, as well as the forms of some pretty dang good remasters, ports, or even remakes essentially, within between the forms of not only Metroid Prime Remastered, but also with the forms of Super Mario RPG as a remake of a Super Nintendo title, and on top of that with Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and you name the rest. So as you can see, about the fact that we've now come towards the end of Act 3 of the Swordfighter Peach, as you can tell, basically though we need to be able to deal with this biggest threat ever, like basically in order able to actually like finish up this entire stage, as you can tell, that we have to deal with him for approximately about 3 times. Although sometimes though, I will admit though right away, is that trying to do the forms of a dodge kind of thing, basically though you have to wait until when he decides to able to come close to you, which it does kind of reminds me like a similar vibes as in Flurry Rush, not only from the likes of in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but also with the honorable mention comes from Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, because that game also utilizes the Flurry Rush. And on top of that, let's not forget ourselves with the forms of the aforementioned, you know, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because that game also has Flurry Rush as well. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that sometimes I will admit though, the timing of trying to dodge or trying to stun him sometimes just feels a bit too finicky for my taste, especially noticeable because of the camera angle and everything. But regardless of such though, once we're trying to able to execute the forms of some more sword slashes here and there, obviously that was it. So obviously no matter what though, we can still able to claim ourselves the 5th and the final Sparkle Gem, so sometimes it can take a bit while to able to actually proceed for that point. So, and exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that as soon as we get into the later stages to come, obviously though is about the fact that certain Sparkle Gems, not only they are sometimes are easy to get, whilst other times though they can be pretty easy to miss, especially noticeable because, as I said before, the entire progression on certain stages are very linear, so either way though, we can able to save that particular topic until whenever we get to a later place. So, oh yeah, if you think that you're basically done, well, we have to do with a quick time event, and obviously once you're done with that successful timing right there, well, that'll be a proper epilogue, or specifically a proper conclusion with that particular play. And I believe that's all we can be able to actually say about the forms of Swordfighter Peach. Well, at least for now anyway, because like I said before, we'll save up with the forms of the rehearsals and so for later, because for now, we are basically done everything for the Swordfighter Peach acts. So, yeah, it seems pretty crazy about the fact that we somehow come across into 2 acts based off from Swordfighter Peach in one particular video so far, which is pretty crazy, kind of thinking about it. Although then again, probably because of the plot's significance anyway, so obviously we still have to force able to go in there when you first time playing for this, basically. So again, like I said before, I apologize if my commentary is a little bit slightly iffy because, well, let me tell you, I was pretty disappointed so far for the likes of that particular absence of Gamescom. Well, don't get me wrong, Gamescom is still happening, but it's most likely focuses on third-party supportive games, which I honestly don't mind to know about the fact that what specific games they'll bring in, for the sake of the forms of what specific demos they're able to experience from, as well as the forms of some brief trailers for time to time. But as far as a hardcore Nintendo fan, such as myself anyway, I was so disappointed that Nintendo is once again going to be dishing out for that particular special event during the forms of in summer. So yeah, I'm a little bit ticked off for that, I must be honest here. So, and speaking of the forms of Gamescom 2024 anyway, it's obviously going to be taking place in between the 21st of August all the way up to the 24th of August. So yeah, that's something worth noting for anyway, especially noticeable if you guys are pretty interested with that. So anyway, so we'll Scout able to save up the rest of the forms of the basement floor for later, because obviously though we've somehow rescued the first of the 10 sparklings that we somehow managed able to rescue. So obviously we'll save the 9 of them until for later. Like I said before, for the sake of the forms of trying to able to participating in for the third act in journey forms of one of those plays. So for now, let's do one more play for today's subject, and that's what appears to be by the forms of the Perfect Infiltration. So because of that, something tells me we're most able to come across into yet another new transformation we can able to turn into. So I wonder what this particular play is going to be all the fuss is all about, huh? So anyway, speaking of which though, is about the fact that recently I did somehow manage to find things out anyway, that basically recently Hollow Knight Silk Song has recently got raided onto Australia right now. So yeah, that seems very promising enough, especially noticeable. I'm not exactly sure if it's still possible about the fact that if ND World might show up in journey forms of later on in this month, like in new forms of how it does it on the previous years, including last year for 2023, but I think something tells me is about the fact that I think there's a reason why that Nintendo is going to be skipping Gamescom this year. It's most likely because I think something tells me they're about to save up for their specific special event during at some point in June anyway. But then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens, especially noticeable because we're still in April after all. So, and also exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that, well, quite frankly, between both Maxi as well as Pac-Man as well, they are both almost going to be approaching towards the end of their specific Let's Plays of, like I've already mentioned about this before, that Maxi's going to be continue playing through Sonic 06 for the finale portion of the entire DLC department, which is of course Shadow's Very Hard mode, and on top of that, Pac-Man is going to be on to the final birthday stage in Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure for the Game Boy Advance version anyway. And still, no matter what though, I found it was a little bit odd that the views count on the Game Boy Advance version is rather low compared to the forms of how it does on the console counterparts, which is understandably so. That's just mainly because no matter what though, because of this repetitive music, and on top of all that stuff though, there's nothing else to it though, especially noticeable because I can totally see why about the fact that most players out there who's already experienced the console version of the game already, and they pretty much already know about the fact that the console version is definitely a little bit superior, just because not only for its voice cast, but it's also with the forms of the interactable cutscenes, which it sometimes plays out every time whenever you accomplish something. So either way, that's saying something. So, and of course, since about the fact that this is the first act in journey forms of one of those specific plays we go on to right now, we're going back into collecting 10 sparkle gems. But again, if I ended up missing one of them, obviously though, I will be back for that until in a future time, because obviously though, there's going to be more things to come. So, anyway, yeah, at least we can able to actually, bet about the fact that maybe it's a possibility that we can finally get a chance to see maybe a brand new trailer or something for Hollow Knight Silk Song eventually. But then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time. So either way, and it's also worth noting for us about the fact that yes indeed, until tomorrow, that for Mario Kart Tour, we're about to be going on to the next tour, which if I recall correctly, that the next tour we're going to be going into is, I'm not exactly sure what it is. It could be either be, it's not going to be Bowser Tour, I don't think. Well, mind you, it's been about a couple of days ago since I actually have last played Mario Kart Tour, despite the fact I still don't like that game that much. But that's just mainly because the controls are still pretty bad as always, and still, I was a little bit, it's mind-boggling to me about the fact that they just could not seem to able to add up the actual control support, which I've still been on about in journey forms within the past few years. But either way, let's just go ahead and change the subject for this point right here, because for now, here we have ourselves the next transformation. And so we have Dashing Thief Peach, which, kind of think about it, it does kind of reminds me like a Persona vibes to it though, with not only for the likes of her looks, but it's also with the music as well. It's almost like classy looking. Well, for some reason, it's about the fact that it does kind of reminds me of like a similar vibes as in certain musical pieces for the likes of Rouge the Bat vibes, because obviously Rouge the Bat was also a thief in dash or dashing thief kind of thing about it, because she was so obsessed with gems alongside with chaos emeralds and you name the rest. And well, it's a bit tricky to explain because it's been quite some time since we've actually known about the forms of Rouge the Bat, since not only in Sonic Adventure 2, but also with Sonic Heroes, Sonic 06, Shadow the Hedgehog, and vice versa. So either way, oh yeah, let's get to the forms of another topic at this point. That's what appears to be about the fact that yes indeed, we're about to be getting a brand new update for the likes of Sonic Dream Team that's going to be coming until specifically tomorrow, on the 17th of April regardless. So, for instance, as reported on by Digital Trends, that is about to be starting until tomorrow on the 17th of April, Sonic Dream Team will be expanded with all the brand new world with Sweet Dreams Zone, which it was pretty unexpected because I was assuming about the fact that they'll try to bring in some new content until now. So yeah, we're about to be getting a new zone coming up until tomorrow, and like I said before, it's going to be called Sweet Dreams Zone. So yeah, that seems interesting. This new locale contains pulleys, swings, and poles to help them reach the uncharted skies as you complete a new state of objectives. Additionally, the classic Sonic ranking system is going to be bringing added to every single level in the entire game. So this means that yes indeed, just like the forms of how it does it on most Sonic games since Sonic Adventure 2, where they firstly introduced the ranking system in a Sonic game, all the way up to Sonic Frontiers, that basically the ranking system is going to be brought back. So yeah, typical stuff for the most part. So yeah, anyway, allowing you to perfect your speedrunning tactics, and you're able to actually get S ranks. So if you're up for the challenge, then by all means you can able to do that. So, and lastly, this new update will bring forth some additional new collectibles, which as a result, we're not exactly sure what the new collectibles they're going to be are. So hopefully by that time we'll be able to find out more about it and during later on. So either way, speaking of which though, is about the fact that additionally, Traditional Trends reached out to Sega Hardlight, the developers of Sonic Dream Team, on the status on additional playable characters, specifically due to Sega's big Year of Shadow marketing campaign. Well, it could be possible for sure, but it's a bit difficult to tell at this point because, like we've already established that in the past few days ago, that they are working on with the forms of not only to add it in some you know, rescheduling events for the likes of the forms of trying to able to get not only additional cosmetic characters for Shadow, from the likes of it not only in Sonic Dash, but also with Sonic Forces Mobile, even though despite the fact that the event itself has already been over. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that you can still able to see the actual loading screen, by the way, if you managed able to try to actually access to Sonic Dash immediately. So yeah, that's besides the point. So anyway, so yeah, that's actually pretty interesting for that particular news and all that stuff though, where it comes to likely bringing some new updates for Sonic Dream Team coming up, again, until tomorrow, that is. Speaking of which though, I also did somehow manage to find out that recently, that Hatsumi Miku's fitness boxing for the Nintendo Switch has been rated so far as in the forms of ESRB rating board. So yeah, this seems interesting enough, despite the fact that it doesn't seem able to give ourselves the international English release of the game just yet though, but hopefully by that time until maybe later on they will do, but not now anyway though, because obviously though I'm gonna have to able to focus on this for a while, because, well, unfortunately to tell you for this point, and that's what appears to be about the fact that yes indeed, I missed out on one of my Sparkle Gems recently, but then again, we'll be back for that eventually, so don't you guys worry, because like I said before, this is going to be a 400% playthrough, as you probably already expect. So either way though, and thus there is no way we can able to backtrack, because like I said before, this is almost like a linear experience after all. So this is actually a pretty cool scene, that basically we can able to catch a ride with a glider, and while trying to dodge those specific security robots, and on top of that, once we get to this particular moon, it gives us this very cool view, which as a result, it is so pleasing to see. So, either way, so that pretty much does it for the sake of the forms of the Perfect Infiltration play, as starring the forms of Dashing Thief Peach. So, pretty cool stuff though, despite the fact that, like I said earlier, I accidentally missed out on one of those specific sparkle gems. But don't worry, we'll be back for that. So, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate this is the first ever sparkle gem I somehow missed, but like I said, we'll be back for that short, you know, for a long period of time. So, I would have liked able to explain some other details at this point in time, but honestly folks, that's as far as I can try to say about that. Although, don't worry, until it's specifically on Thursday, that I should be able to explain about. I actually couldn't think about it. I think the next tour coming up for the likes of the specific reruns of Mario Kart Tour coming up, that's what appears to be the spring tour, which obviously we're going back into Athens Dash after all. I keep on thinking about the forms of the later weeks to come, like specifically after the spring tour is going to be Bowser Tour, and after that it will be the Mii Tour, and that's as far as I can talk about. So either way, before we end off the video right here, let me just go ahead and quickly change the specific cosmetic dresses. Specifically, for Peach, we'll go for... yeah, let's go for this one. Especially noticeable, it's pretty pricey though, but regardless of such though, we'll go for that as it is. And as far as Stella's ribbon is concerned, we'll go for that particular color choice, because something tells me is that the next play coming up is going to be pretty interesting. So, but then again though, we'll save that up and join at some point on Thursday. So, yeah, you probably get the idea for that. So, with that being said, and I think as certainly as possible, I can able to buy every single color ribbons for Stella right here from that particular shopping menu. So, yeah, it's definitely possible for sure. But exponentially, we'll still need to able to actually try to go after some more ribbons for Stella for the likes of specifically in Act 2 portions of certain plays. But that's not going to be until for likely for the 3rd floor, and maybe the 4th floor, and maybe the 5th floor, and vice versa. So with that being said, folks, is that we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime. And that's what appears to be about the fact that exponentially we can continue things on in the 2nd floor, for not only to try to able to tackle through these next 2 plays, but also we're about to tackle for the 2nd boss. So I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.